A young billionaire finds a hungry girl at the gates of his mansion. She looks at him and says, "Sorry, Dad, I'm late." What he discovers next changes his life forever. Rain hammered against the windows of the Hayes mansion as though trying to break in by force. Noah didn't mind. The sound of the storm even helped him focus on the numbers filling his computer screen. Spreadsheets, graphs, and financial projections, his entire world distilled into digits and percentages. It was nearly 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and the office on the mansion's first floor remained the only lit room. The staff had already retired to their quarters or gone home. Noah preferred it that way. Silence was his most reliable ally. A flash of lightning split the sky, briefly illuminating the immaculate garden through the French windows. The thunder that followed made the house tremble slightly. "One more hour and I'll finish this," he murmured to himself, adjusting his reading glasses. Noah Hayes was the kind of man many would call successful. At 38 sex, he ran one of the biggest technology companies in the country. Money, power, respect. He had everything the world valued. Yet he lived alone in a mansion far too large for a single person, and his social calendar was basically a string of business meetings and corporate dinners. He was about to review the last report of the night when a knock on the front door interrupted him. The sound seemed frail against the roar of the storm, but still, it was audible. Noah frowned. It was 10 o'clock at night, in the middle of a storm. Who would knock on his door at this hour? He hesitated for a moment. The intercom hadn't rung, which meant someone had managed to get past the main gate unannounced. Maybe it was an emergency involving a staff member. The knock came again, more insistent this time. With an irritated sigh, Noah stood up and crossed the entrance hall. He wasn't expecting visitors and he hated surprises. He switched on the exterior light and opened the door, already preparing an expression of impatience. What he saw left him momentarily speechless. A girl of about 5 stood before him, soaked to the skin, her brown hair stuck to her face, and she clutched an equally drenched backpack to her chest. She was visibly shivering, looking up at him with large brown eyes that, despite her obvious exhaustion, shone with a strange determination. "Can I help you?" Noah asked, confused by the presence of this unaccompanied child. The girl swallowed hard, still trembling. Then she said something that made the ground shift beneath Noah's feet. "You're Noah Hayes, right?" "I'm Emily." She paused, as though gathering courage. "You're my dad." Noah felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. His first instinct was to slam the door and pretend this wasn't happening. A mistake. A prank. Maybe some kind of elaborate scam. "I think you're mistaken," he replied coolly, but he couldn't close the door. The girl, Emily, looked so fragile under the relentless rain. "Mom said you wouldn't know about me," she continued, her voice small but firm. "She said if something happened to her, I should come find you." Noah still held the doorknob, torn between suspicion and a strange feeling that he couldn't just ignore this situation. "Where's your mother?" he asked, trying to remain cautious. Emily lowered her eyes for the first time. "I don't know. We were together at the grocery store near the hotel, and then there were a lot of people, and I got separated from her. I waited, but she didn't come back. Mom always said that if we ever got separated and I couldn't find her, I should come here." Another clap of thunder shook the sky, making the girl shrink back. Noah looked past her, at the storm that seemed to grow worse by the minute. He couldn't just send her away, even if her story sounded made up. No child should be alone on a night like this. "How did you get here?" Noah asked, still not fully opening the door. "By taxi," Emily replied. "Mom taught me your address. She said I should memorize it, just in case." She reached into the pocket of her soaked jacket and pulled out some crumpled, wet bills. "I used the emergency money." Noah hesitated a moment longer. Part of him, the cold, rational part that had propelled him to the top of the corporate world, said this was some kind of trap, that he should call the police immediately, that he shouldn't get involved. But another part, one that rarely spoke up, couldn't leave this child shivering in the rain. "Come in," he finally said, opening the door wider. We'll figure this out. Emily took a small, hesitant step into the foyer, leaving a puddle on the marble floor. She looked even smaller beneath the bright chandelier. What's your mom's full name? Noah asked as he closed the door behind her. Claire Donovan, Emily answered promptly. Noah frowned. The name meant absolutely nothing to him. He was certain he'd never been with anyone named Claire Donovan, or at least he couldn't recall such a person. Emily sneezed, bringing Noah back to the present moment. Whatever the truth was, the girl needed dry clothes and something warm to eat. Let's go upstairs, he said, his tone still distant. You need to dry off before we both catch a cold. Emily nodded, following him up the wide staircase to the second floor. Her wet footprints left a trail on the carpet, and Noah tried not to think about what his housekeeper would say in the morning. The Hayes mansion had 5 guest suites, all impeccably maintained despite rarely being used. Noah led Emily to the smallest one, turned on the lights, and opened the built-in closet. I don't have any kids' clothes, obviously, he said, pulling out a plain white t-shirt. This will have to do as a nightgown for now. The bathroom is over there. Take a hot bath and dry off well. Emily took the t-shirt gingerly as though it was something precious. Thank you, she mumbled. So quietly Noah almost didn't hear her. I'll get you something to eat, he said, heading toward the door. I'll be downstairs when you're finished. On his way back down, Noah took his phone out of his pocket and considered calling the police right away. A lost child was something the authorities should handle, not him. But something nagged at him. Claire Donovan. He tried again to match the name with a face, a memory. Nothing. Still, Emily's claim that he was her father demanded a firmer response than simply sending her away. If it were true, and he seriously doubted it, it would create unimaginable complications for his carefully controlled life. If it were false, he still had to figure out what was really going on. In the kitchen, he gathered some ingredients to make a sandwich and heat up instant soup. It wasn't much, but it would warm the girl up. While the water boiled, Noah found himself staring at the window, seeing only the reflection of his own tense face. 15 minutes later, Emily appeared at the kitchen door. The white t-shirt came down to her knees, and her still damp hair was darker than Noah had first noticed. She seemed less frightened now, but still vulnerable in a way that made him uneasy. Take a seat. He indicated one of the high stools by the counter. Emily obeyed, climbing up with some difficulty. Her bare feet swung, unable to reach the footrest. Noah placed the sandwich and soup in front of her. How did you know where to find me? He asked while she started eating with obvious hunger. Between bites, Emily replied, Mom always knew where you lived. She said it was important that I know in case I ever needed you. And why would you need me? Noah pressed, watching her closely. Emily shrugged, focusing on the food. Because you're my dad. That's what Mom said. Noah took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Emily, I don't know your mother. I think there's some misunderstanding here. The girl looked up from her plate. She said you'd say that. And what else did she say? Noah asked, crossing his arms. Emily took a spoonful of soup before answering. That you wouldn't remember her. That it was a long time ago. But if she couldn't take care of me, you would, because deep down you're a good man. Noah felt strangely uneasy at that statement. A good man. It had been a while since anyone used those words to describe him. I'll call the police in the morning, he said, keeping his voice neutral. They'll know how to find your mother. Emily didn't protest. She just nodded slightly as she continued eating. She looked exhausted. Where do you and your mum live? Noah tried again. We move a lot, Emily replied vaguely. We were staying in a hotel near here this week. And before that, Seattle. And before that, Denver. Noah realized he wouldn't get anywhere with this interrogation. The girl was clearly too tired for a coherent conversation. I'm done, she said, pushing away her empty plate. Thank you for the food. Noah took the dishes to the sink. Come on, I'll take you back to the guest room. We'll figure all this out tomorrow. On the way back, Noah noticed how Emily looked around with curiosity at the paintings on the walls, the sculptures in the niches. the sheer size of the rooms. It seemed she was memorizing every detail. "Here we are," he said, opening the door to the guest room. "Everything you need is in the bathroom. If you need anything during the night, my room is the last one at the end of the hallway on the right." Emily climbed onto the bed, which was far too big for her, and settled among the pillows. "Will Mom find me?" she asked, showing the first real sign of vulnerability Noah had seen since her arrival. "We'll find her," he responded, not promising too much. "Just rest now." He was about to leave when Emily's small voice stopped him. "She said you were a good man." Noah paused, not turning around. "But she said you forgot who you really were," Emily added, almost in a whisper. An inexplicable chill ran down Noah's spine. He turned to answer, but Emily was already settled among the pillows, eyes closed. He turned off the light, leaving only the bedside lamp on, and quietly closed the door. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall for a moment, suddenly breathless. Forgot who he really was. Those words lingered as he returned to his office. The rain still pounded mercilessly outside, but now there was something more unsettling than the storm. His absolute certainty that he'd never met anyone named Claire Donovan was beginning to fade, replaced by a restlessness he couldn't name. He sat down at his computer again, but financial reports no longer mattered. He opened a new browser window and typed in the name that wouldn't leave his mind, Claire Donovan. The search was just beginning, along with the strangest night of his life. Upstairs, asleep in the guest room, the little girl who claimed to be his daughter had brought far more than a soaked backpack. She'd brought questions for which Noah was no longer sure he wanted answers. 3 days had passed since Emily's arrival. Noah maintained a calculated distance, even after discovering that the hotel the girl mentioned did indeed exist, and that Claire Donovan had checked in there with a child, but vanished on the exact date Emily had described. The police had opened an investigation into the disappearance case, but so far, nothing concrete had surfaced. Emily remained at the Hayes mansion, growing more comfortable each day in a space that wasn't really hers. "We need to clear this up once and for all," Noah told his lawyer, Diane Wells, who was sitting across from him in his office. "I want a DNA test. As soon as possible." Diane adjusted her rectangular glasses, analyzing the situation with the cool detachment Noah so valued in her services. "I can arrange it for later today," she replied. "I know a lab that can prioritize the case. We'll have preliminary results in 48 hours. "Great." Noah tapped his fingers on the desk. "What about temporary custody? Technically, you're already exercising de facto custody. If the test confirms paternity, you'll have a legal right. If it doesn't?" Diane paused. "Then we'll find out who's really behind this and what they want," Noah said, making no effort to hide the hardness in his voice. When Diane left, Noah went upstairs to the room where Emily was. He found her sitting on the bed, drawing in a notepad the housekeeper had provided. "Emily," his voice made the girl look up from her drawing. "We need to do a test." "What kind of test?" She seemed genuinely curious, without a trace of worry. "A DNA test. Do you know what that is?" Emily nodded. "It's when they check if two people are in the same family, like father and daughter." She smiled slightly. "Mom explained that you might want that someday." The child's confidence irritated him. It was as though Claire Donovan had prepared Emily for every step of this meeting, for every reaction he might have. "So you don't mind?" Noah asked, watching her closely. "No." Emily went back to her drawing. "I know you're my dad." Noah felt his face heat up, a mix of frustration and a discomfort he couldn't name. Why was this girl so certain? Why did he feel so cornered? 2 hours later, a nurse from the lab Diane had recommended arrived at the mansion. The procedure was quick, a saliva sample from both Noah and Emily. The girl showed no hint of nerves, while Noah couldn't hide his agitation. "How long until we have the results?" he asked the nurse. "We're prioritizing your case, Mr. Hayes. 48 hours, at most." Those 48 hours were the longest Noah could remember. He tried to focus on work, But his mind always drifted back to the girl now sleeping under his roof, to the name that wouldn't leave his thoughts, Claire Donovan, and to the inexplicable feeling that he was losing control of his own story. Emily, on the other hand, seemed increasingly at ease. On the morning of the second day, Noah found her in the kitchen, helping the housekeeper make pancakes. "Good morning," she said naturally, as if she'd been living in his house for years. "Want blueberry pancakes? They're the best." Noah declined, just grabbing his cup of coffee. He watched Emily's poise, how she had already found her place in a house that had never really been a home, even for him. That afternoon, the phone call Noah had both hoped for and dreaded finally came. "Mr. Hayes," the lab doctor's voice sounded formal on the other end of the line. "We have the preliminary results of the paternity test." Noah's mouth went dry. "And the probability of paternity is greater than 99.9%. There's no doubt. The girl is your biological daughter." The world seemed to slow around Noah. The words echoed in his mind, but they didn't fully register. His biological daughter, a 99.9% certainty. How was that possible? How could he have a 5-year-old daughter and not remember her mother? "Mr. Hayes, are you there?" The doctor's voice snapped him back. "Yes, thank you for the result. Send the full report to my email." Noah hung up and remained motionless for several minutes, staring at the office wall without really seeing it. Then, slowly, he walked to the living rooms, where Emily was watching a cartoon. She immediately sensed his presence, and something in his expression must have betrayed his state of shock. "They called, didn't they?" she asked simply. Noah nodded, still at a loss for words. Emily smiled, not triumphantly, but with relief. "I knew it." "How?" The question slipped out almost as an accusation. "How did you know? If I didn't even know? How can I have a daughter and not remember?" Emily's expression changed, surprisingly mature for a 5-year-old. "Mom said you wouldn't remember. She said it was complicated." "Complicated?" Noah almost laughed, an empty sound. "Having a daughter and forgetting about her is more than complicated, Emily. It's impossible." Emily turned off the TV, now focusing all her attention on Noah. "Mum doesn't like to talk about the past, but she showed me pictures of you. She told me stories. She said maybe one day you'd remember, maybe not." Noah approached, sitting next to her on the couch. "What stories? What else did she tell you?" "That you met when she worked at a coffee shop near your office, that you used to laugh more back then." Emily spoke as if reciting something memorized, but with genuine emotion. "She said something happened that separated you, and after that you forgot about her. But when she found out she was pregnant with me, it was too late to tell you." Noah tried to force his memory. A coffee shop? Claire working as a waitress? None of it triggered any recollection. "I don't..." He paused, not knowing how to explain the unexplainable to a child. "I really don't remember, Emily." The girl surprised him by placing her small hand on his. "That's okay. Mum said it wasn't your fault." The statement hit him like a punch. Not his fault. Exactly what had Claire told Emily? And why now, after 5 years, had she sent the girl to him? "When we find your mum, I'll have a lot of questions for her," Noah said, more to himself than to Emily. "She'll answer," Emily stated, with that unshakable confidence that unsettled him. "Mum always said the truth was important, even when it hurts." Noah stood up, needing space to process everything. In 3 days, his orderly, predictable life had turned into an enigma he couldn't solve. And the most unsettling part, the test confirmed Emily was indeed his daughter, meaning there was an entire chapter of his life he didn't remember. "Can I call you Dad now?" Emily's question caught him off guard. Noah looked at her, this confident child who shared his genes, who had his eyes, and who, in some inexplicable way, was part of him. "Let's take it slow," he replied, his voice gentler than he intended. "We have a lot to figure out first." But the truth revealed by the DNA test was inescapable. Scientifically, biologically, Noah Hayes was a father. What he couldn't understand was how he'd become one, and worse, how he'd forgotten. The paternity test result changed everything. In less than 24 hours, Noah turned his search for answers into a large-scale operation. The Hayes mansion, usually silent, now buzzed with security personnel, private investigators, and lawyers. "I want all the security camera footage from the grocery store where Emily says she got separated from her mother," Noah told Marcus Brent, the head of security he'd hired years ago for delicate corporate matters, and from the adjacent streets, nearby stores and everything. Marcus, an ex-military man of few words, nodded. "We've already requested them. We're reconstructing her movements in the 48 hours before she disappeared." Across the makeshift conference table in Noah's office, Diane Wells was flipping through documents. "What's strange is that I can't find many records for Claire Donovan," she commented, frowning. "No significant bank accounts, few lease agreements, always temporary. It's like she was hiding." Noah felt a twinge at the back of his neck. "Hiding from whom? Or from what?" Marcus added. "Some people prefer living off the radar, sometimes because of debts, legal troubles, or..." He hesitated. "Or," Noah pressed him, "or because they're afraid of someone." The silence that followed was loaded with unsettling possibilities. Noah couldn't stop thinking. If Claire was running from something or someone, why had she sent Emily specifically to him? A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Sarah, the housekeeper, peeked inside. "Mr. Hayes, Emily is asking if she can have lunch. It's almost 2 o'clock. Noah glanced at the clock, surprised. He'd lost track of time completely. "Take a break," he told the group. "We'll resume in an hour." As he walked up the stairs toward the kitchen, Noah realized this was his new reality. He could no longer bury himself in work and meetings without considering another person, a 5-year-old child, his daughter, who depended on him for the most basic needs. He found Emily sitting on the kitchen counter, swinging her legs far from the floor, while Sarah helped her color a book. "Look, I made a green dinosaur," Emily exclaimed when she saw him, holding up the book proudly. "Very nice," Noah replied, surprised by the kindness in his own voice. "Sorry I kept you waiting." Emily shrugged and went back to coloring. "Sarah helped me. She doesn't color outside the lines." The housekeeper smiled discreetly while preparing sandwiches. Noah noticed how Emily had already built a comfortable relationship with her. In just a few days, the girl was beginning to put down roots here, while Claire remained a mystery. "Can we eat outside?" Emily suddenly asked, pointing to the window. "It's sunny." Noah hesitated. He usually ate lunch in his office, when he remembered to eat at all. The garden was just scenery he saw through the windows. "Why not?" he answered, surprising even himself. Minutes later, they sat at a table on the back patio, under the shade of an old oak tree. The air was fresh and clean after the previous week's storm, as though nature also wanted a fresh start. Emily perched on 2 cushions to reach the table, her legs dangling as she ate. "Emily," Noah began, as she took bites of her sandwich cut into triangles, just as Sarah had learned she preferred. "Can you tell me more about you and your mom? Where did you live?" Emily chewed, leaving crumbs on the plate. "We've lived in a lot of houses. Sometimes in hotels, too." "You moved a lot." Noah tried to keep the question simple. Emily nodded energetically. "A lot. Mom says we're explorers." "Do you know why you move so often?" The little girl shrugged with the simplicity of her 5 years. "Mom says it's because of work, but she always looks back when we leave. Like she forgot something." Noah exchanged a glance with Marcus, who hovered discreetly near the patio door. The security chief gave a slight nod, indicating he was mentally recording the information. "What does your mom do? What kind of work?" Noah continued, keeping his voice light. "She talks to people on the computer," Emily said, taking a big bite of her sandwich. "Sometimes she uses funny words I don't understand." "Other languages?" Emily nodded, her mouth full. "She can speak a bunch of languages. Sometimes she teaches me magic words." "Do you go to school?" Noah asked, curious about how a 5-year-old living on the movie got her education. Not yet. Mom teaches me letters and numbers. Emily looked proud. I can count to 100. Want me to show you? Maybe later. Noah gave a small smile. Did your mom ever say where she'd go if you got separated? Emily shook her head, making her hair bounce. No. She just said if we ever got separated, I should come to your house, that you'd take care of me. Did she talk about me before? Tell you stories? Yes. Emily brightened, her eyes shining. She said you drink a lot of coffee. Black coffee. Yuck. She made a face that, surprisingly, brought a small smile to Noah's lips. Double Americano. No sugar, he murmured. That's it. Emily clapped her hands, delighted he knew. How did you guess? Noah froze. That specific detail, his preference for coffee, triggered a strange déjà vu. He did always order a double Americano with no sugar. It was a habit of many years. It's just what I always order, he answered cautiously. What else did she say about me? That you used to play music. Emily lifted her hands, imitating someone at a piano. A pretty song with moon in the name. Claire de Lune, Noah murmured, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Yes, Emily's eyes widened. How did you know? Noah had no explanation. It wasn't a specific memory of Claire, but it was indeed his favorite piece to play years ago. The name Claire and Claire de Lune, could that be a coincidence? The rest of lunch passed with Emily sharing more fragments of her life with her mother, interspersed with questions about the animals she saw in the garden and whether Noah had toys in the house. She bounced from topic to topic like a typical 5-year-old. Every detail only deepened the mystery but also evoked a strange effect on Noah. The name Claire Donovan was beginning to provoke an almost physical sensation in him, not a concrete memory, but a familiarity he couldn't quite place, like a word on the tip of his tongue that refused to be spoken. After lunch, Noah had to return to his professional obligations. An important video conference couldn't be postponed, even though his personal life was in utter chaos. Emily, I need to work for a few hours, he explained, choosing words a 5-year-old would understand. Why? The question came immediately, with the direct curiosity typical of her age. Because it's my job. I have an important meeting. Emily frowned, clearly unsatisfied with his answer. But I wanted to show you my other drawings. Noah found himself in unfamiliar territory. In his world, work always came first. He wasn't used to anyone questioning his priorities, least of all someone who barely reached his waist. How about we look at your drawings after dinner? He offered, surprised by his own flexibility. Emily considered for a moment. Can we have pasta? Pasta? With tomato sauce. It's my favorite. Sure, Noah agreed, once again surprising himself. Pasta with tomato sauce. The afternoon dragged on with meetings and emails. Between tasks, Noah checked in with Marcus to see if there were any updates on Claire. The hours passed without any significant breakthroughs. We found footage of her on the grocery store cameras, Marcus reported at the end of the day. She entered with Emily at 3:47 p.m. and that afternoon. By 4:22 p.m. the cameras show Claire looking agitated, searching for someone, presumably Emily, who's no longer with her. Then what? Noah asked, tense. She leaves the store, apparently looking for her daughter outside. Then Marcus hesitated. What? She looks at something off camera. Her expression changes completely. Pure fear. And she just runs the other way. A chill ran through Noah. She saw someone. Seems like it. We're trying to access other cameras to identify what or who she saw. Their conversation was interrupted by a phone call. It was Diane. You need to see this, she said bluntly. Minutes later, she entered the office carrying a folder. We finally have something concrete about Claire Donovan, or rather, about Claire Dawson, Bradford, Taylor, Reynolds, and half a dozen other last names she's used over the past 6 years. Diane spread documents across the desk, copies of IDs, driver's licenses, each with a photo of the same woman but different names. She changes her identity approximately every 8 or 10 months. We managed to trace some of these changes. Noah examined the photos, trying to find something familiar in the woman's face. Claire was attractive in a discreet way. Brown hair, delicate features, intelligent eyes. But as hard as he tried, he couldn't associate her with any specific memory. "Why would she do this?" he murmured. "That's the million-dollar question," Diane replied. "People who live like this are usually running from something serious, massive debts, criminal charges, or someone dangerous," Noah finished. "Exactly. And here's the strangest part. Before she started this life of constant moves and fake identities, Claire Donovan, her real name, from what we can verify, was a university linguistics professor. She published articles, had a promising career. Then, about 6 years ago, she just vanished from academia." 6 years, Noah repeated. "Emily is 5. A heavy silence filled the room as everyone processed the timing. Whatever had made Claire disappear happened shortly before Emily was conceived. Noah felt a headache coming on. He needed air. He needed time to think. "Keep looking," he ordered. "I want everything on Claire Donovan, especially what happened 6 years ago." Leaving the office, Noah found himself wandering the mansion's halls without a specific destination. Somehow, his steps led him to the old music room, a space he rarely visited anymore. The grand piano stood there, covered in a thin layer of dust. On a whim, Noah removed the cover and sat down on the bench. His hands hovered over the keys, hesitant. He was so absorbed that he didn't notice Emily standing at the door until she spoke. "That's a giant piano." Noah almost stood up, embarrassed at being caught in a vulnerable moment, but something kept him seated. "Yes, it's a grand piano," he explained. Emily came into the room, her eyes wide with wonder. She looked tiny next to the massive instrument. "Are you going to play?" she asked, stepping closer as though the piano might get scared and run away. "I'm not sure. It's been a long time." "Mum said you play beautiful music." Emily ran a tiny finger across the keys, producing a random series of notes. "Will you play?" There it was again. Claire knowing things about him she shouldn't have known unless they had truly shared a past. "Would you like me to try?" Noah surprised himself with the offer. Emily nodded eagerly, nearly bouncing with excitement. Noah helped her climb onto the bench beside him, where she could barely see above the keyboard. He played the first notes of Claire de Lune with hesitation. His fingers were stiff, out of practice, but gradually muscle memory kicked in. The notes flowed, shaky at first, then more confidently as he continued. Emily watched, utterly fascinated, her mouth slightly open. "Wow, it sounds like fairy music." Noah kept playing, letting the music fill him. With each note, he felt something stir inside. Not exactly a memory, but an old, buried emotion trying to surface. When he finished, the silence that followed felt almost sacred. "Again," Emily requested, clapping her hands. Noah smiled slightly. "Maybe later. How about that pasta I promised?" "With tomato sauce," Emily reminded him, sliding off the bench with his help. "And cheese on top." That night, for the first time in years, Noah didn't eat alone in his office. Instead, he sat in the kitchen with Emily, who insisted on helping Sarah cook dinner, which basically meant standing on a stool and stirring the sauce while heavily supervised. The girl chattered non-stop, telling stories about an imaginary friend named Mr. Buttons and asking every 2 minutes if the pasta was ready. It was a simple, domestic scene, one that had never belonged in his orderly and solitary life. And, surprisingly, Noah found himself less uncomfortable than he'd imagined. During dinner, Emily suddenly went quiet, for the first time that Noah had seen her without that bubbling energy. "You are going to find Mom, aren't you?" The question carried both hope and fear. Noah realized that despite all her apparent adaptability, Emily was still just a frightened 5-year-old child, separated from the only constant in her life. "I'll do everything I can," he answered honestly. "I promise." Emily studied his face for a moment with surprising intensity for someone so young. Then, to Noah's complete surprise, she held out her pinky finger. "Pinky promise?" she asked seriously. Noah hesitated before hooking his own pinky with hers. "Pinky promise?" Emily seemed satisfied with that and returned to her pasta with renewed interest. Later, after putting Emily to bed, a process that included 3 bedtime stories, checking under the bed and in the closet for monsters, plugging in a nightlight, and promising to leave the door slightly open, Noah returned to his office. The reports on Claire Donovan, or whatever her real name was, were still scattered across his desk. Photos, documents, fragments of a life inexplicably tied to his. Noah picked up one of the photos, studying the woman's face. Claire. The name echoed in his mind, sparking that same strange sensation, familiarity without a specific recollection, like a dream evaporating upon waking. "Where are you?" he murmured at the photograph. "And what happened between us?" The mansion was quiet around him. Somewhere above, his daughter, it was still strange to think of her that way, slept soundly, clutching a teddy bear Sarah had found in a closet. And somewhere out there, the woman who knew his secrets, his preferences, his music, was still missing. Noah placed the photo back on the desk and leaned against his chair. Tomorrow he would resume the search. Tomorrow, maybe he'd be one step closer to understanding how he'd lost not just a woman, but also 5 years of his own daughter's life. And maybe a part of himself too. 2 weeks had passed since Emily's arrival, and Claire's absence was becoming a heavy presence in the Hayes mansion. The search continued, but yielded no concrete results. Noah had expanded the team of investigators and offered a substantial reward for any information, yet Claire Donovan seemed to have vanished. Emily, meanwhile, was adapting surprisingly well to her new routine. Noah had hired a tutor to guide her education, since the girl was used to being homeschooled. Gradually, a new normal was emerging, but the unanswered questions still tormented Noah. If Claire had sent Emily to him, why hadn't she shown up? And more importantly, how could he be the father of a 5-year-old and not remember the child's mother? Sitting in his office, Noah stared at his computer screen, which displayed a file he'd been avoiding for days. Diane had managed to secure access to his own medical records, something he'd never bothered to look at before. "Mr. Hayes." Noah looked up. Sarah stood at the door, hesitant. "Emily's already asleep," the housekeeper said. "She asked me to let you know she wants pancakes for breakfast tomorrow." Noah nodded. "Thanks, Sarah. You can head to bed now." Left alone again, he took a deep breath and returned his attention to the file on the screen. The medical report dated back 6 years. He scanned the pages until he found the main diagnosis: severe traumatic brain injury resulting from a car accident. The accident. Noah vaguely remembered it. His car had veered off the road one rainy night, colliding with a tree. He recalled being hospitalized for a few weeks, but had always considered the incident just a bump in his busy life, something he overcame without major consequences. He kept reading, each paragraph revealing details missing from his memory. Patient presents partial retrograde amnesia, primarily affecting memories from the 14 months prior to the accident. Cognitive function otherwise preserved. Noah felt a cold chill run down his spine. Amnesia. No one had ever mentioned that to him. Or had they, and he'd simply forgotten. His eyes darted to the accident date. Doing a quick calculation, he realized it matched roughly 6 months before Emily's likely conception. The 14 months of lost memories could easily include his entire relationship with Claire. With trembling fingers, he read on, looking for more information. Patient was discharged after 3 weeks of hospitalization with a recommendation for neuropsychological follow-up to treat amnesia. Prognosis for memory recovery. Uncertain. Another passage caught his eye. During hospitalization, the patient was visited daily by family members. No other visitors were allowed, at the request of the Hayes family. Noah closed his eyes, struggling to process this new revelation. Not only had he suffered an accident that erased more than a year of his memories, but his family had also apparently controlled who could and could not visit him during recovery. Claire might have tried to see him. Had she been turned away by his family? He realized he was holding his breath and exhaled slowly. He needed more answers. He grabbed his phone and called Diane, despite the late hour. "I need you to find my neurologist from back then," he said as soon as she answered. "Dr. Morales. I want an appointment as soon as possible." 2 nights later, Noah woke with a start. Another dream. The third one since he'd learned about his amnesia. It was always the same scenario. Him in a hospital bed, unable to move, while a female figure held his hand. He could feel the warmth of her fingers intertwined with his, hear muffled sobs, but when he tried to focus on her face, it stayed blurry, like looking through frosted glass. He got up, knowing he wouldn't get back to sleep. The clock read 3:17 a.m. He put on a robe and headed downstairs to get a glass of water. Passing the hallway, he noticed a faint light coming from Emily's room. He approached carefully and pushed the door open a crack. The girl was sitting up in bed, hugging a teddy bear under the soft glow of the bedside lamp. Her eyes were red and wet. "Emily?" Noah stepped inside. "What's wrong?" "I had a bad dream," she answered, her voice small. "Mom was calling me, but I couldn't find her." Noah sat on the edge of the bed, awkwardly. He still didn't know exactly how to comfort a child. "It was just a dream," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "You're safe now." Emily nodded, but she kept hugging the teddy. "When are we going to find Mom?" That question, so direct and full of longing, hit Noah like a stone. What could he say? That despite all his resources, he hadn't found any trace of Claire, that he was beginning to fear the worst. "We're doing everything we can," he replied, avoiding a promise he couldn't guarantee. Emily studied him with those big eyes that seemed to see beyond his words. "Mom says when you're scared, you have to be braver than the fear." Noah gave a slight smile. "Your mom sounds very wise." "She is," Emily said, brightening a bit. "And strong, too. Once our car broke down on the highway and she fixed it all by herself." "She fixed a car?" Noah asked, surprised. "Yeah, she opened the front part and messed around with a bunch of things. It took a while, Bill, but then it worked." Emily looked proud. "Mom can do a lot of things." Noah fell silent, absorbing this new information. Every detail Emily shared about Claire painted a more complete picture of the mysterious woman who had entered and disappeared from his life without leaving any imprint on his memory. "Do you want me to stay until you fall asleep again?" he offered. Emily nodded, settling back among the pillows. Noah stayed by her side, awkward yet present. Within a few minutes, the girl's breathing became deep and steady. Even after Emily drifted off, Noah remained there for a while, watching her. How could he have missed the first 5 years of his daughter's life? How could he have completely forgotten her mother? And what if he never got those memories back? What if he never remembered Claire? The next morning, Noah sat in a discreet waiting room in a medical building downtown. He'd managed to get an appointment with his old neurologist, Dr. Morales, a middle-aged man with an academic air. "Mr. Hayes," the doctor greeted him, leading him into the consultation room. "I was surprised you reached out. It's been 6 years since we last met." Noah took the seat indicated. "Doctor, I recently found out I have a 5-year-old daughter." Dr. Morales raised his eyebrows, but his face stayed professional. "I see. And this relates to your accident." "Apparently so. Her mother, Claire Donovan, I don't remember her at all. But everything suggests we had a relationship during the period I can't recall because of the amnesia." The doctor nodded, checking a folder on his desk. "Your retrograde amnesia affected about 14 months prior to the accident. It's entirely possible you had a significant relationship in that period. Why didn't anyone tell me?" Noah couldn't keep the frustration out of his voice. "Why wasn't I informed I'd lost over a year of my life?" Dr. Morales adjusted his glasses, choosing his words carefully. Mr. Hayes, I informed your family about your condition. It was your father who decided how to handle the situation. He insisted that added stress would jeopardize your recovery. My father, Noah repeated with bitterness. Of course it was him. Gerald Hayes, the controlling patriarch, never approved of any of Noah's relationships. You did come to see me a few times after your discharge, the doctor continued. But after a few appointments, you decided to stop treatment. You said you felt fine and preferred to move on. Noah frowned. He had no memory of making that decision. That's common in amnesia cases, Dr. Morales explained, noting Noah's confusion. Some patients prefer not to explore lost memories, especially if they can resume their lives without major hindrances. You had your company, your routine. Now I have a daughter, Noah finished, and I don't remember her mother. The doctor nodded. Has anything changed recently? Are you having flashbacks or recurrent dreams? Noah hesitated. Dreams. A woman in the hospital holding my hand. I can't see her face. That's a good sign, Dr. Morales said. It means the memories are there, just inaccessible. We can try some therapeutic approaches to help you recover them. Like what? Cognitive behavioral therapy, clinical hypnosis, visualization techniques, the doctor listed. But I must warn you, recovering traumatic or emotionally charged memories can be a difficult process. It's worth a try, Noah decided. He needed the truth, for Emily's sake and his own. Over the next 2 weeks, Noah split his time between his company, Emily, and therapy sessions. 3 times a week, he met with Dr. Leanne Chen, a neuropsychologist specializing in memory recovery, recommended by Dr. Morales. The sessions were intense and often frustrating. Visualization exercises, deep relaxation techniques, even clinical hypnosis, all in an attempt to access those lost 14 months. The brain protects itself, Dr. Chen explained, during a particularly difficult session. When it suffers trauma, like your accident, it may block memories from the prior period as a defense mechanism. But it's been 6 years, Noah argued. Time isn't always the main factor. Without the right stimuli, some memories can remain blocked indefinitely. In one session, Dr. Chen asked Noah to bring music he used to listen to around the time of the accident. He chose Debussy, including Clair de Lune, the piece he inexplicably associated with Claire. Lying on a comfortable couch in the silent office, Noah closed his eyes as the delicate notes filled the space. Dr. Chen guided him through a relaxation exercise, asking him to visualize a hallway with multiple doors. Each door could contain a memory, she said softly. Just observe them. Don't force anything. Noah imagined the hallway, feeling deeply relaxed. The doors appeared in his mind, all closed. He walked mentally down the corridor until one door caught his attention. It was light blue, with a small crack in the middle. He approached. As soon as he touched the handle, the background music seemed to grow louder. He turned the handle, and the door opened. A coffee shop. The smell of freshly ground beans. He was sitting at a table near the window, working on his laptop. A female voice asking if he wanted more coffee. He looked up and saw... The image vanished before he could see her face. Noah opened his eyes, frustrated. You were in a coffee shop, he told Dr. Chen. Someone offered me coffee, but I couldn't see who it was. That's progress, she encouraged him. The images will come more clearly over time. Don't force them. That night, the dream returned, more vivid.